I never imagined that a single act of kindness from a millionaire would change my life forever. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The day the world around me shattered like glass. I felt it in my bones, a cold creeping through me, wrapping around my heart. I was standing on the corner of Maple and Fourth, my hands trembling, wrapped in a worn-out coat that had lost its warmth. The wind sliced through the streets, biting at my cheeks. I could hear laughter coming from the cozy cafes, smell the rich coffee brewing. It hurt to be so close, yet so far from comfort. My stomach growled, a hollow echo in the silence of my struggles. The truth? I was at the end of my rope, staring into the abyss of despair. My background was simple. My parents, hard workers, always reminded me to chase my dreams. But chasing those dreams felt pointless now. They'd passed away too soon, leaving me with a pile of bills and endless sorrow. I had lost my anchor, my reason to hope. The loneliness wrapped around me like a heavy cloak. That's when I spotted him. A man in a tailored suit, shining like a beacon against the dreary cityscape. He moved with purpose, but then he stopped. His eyes met mine, and there was something different about Hema kindness that felt foreign in this concrete jungle. I watched him hand a warm drink to a homeless man, his smile infectious. It made the world feel lighter, if only for a moment. That it was strange to me, watching him. He didn't seem like the billionaires I'd read about. No arrogance, no judgment in his gaze. Would he even notice me, the invisible girl, drowning in despair? I felt my heart race, pounding in my chest as if it was trying to escape. Maybe, just maybe, a small act of kindness from him could change everything for me. Then the unexpected happened. He turned, walked straight towards me. My breath caught. I felt exposed, vulnerable. What would he say? What could I say? I could hear the faint thud of my heart in the anxious silence. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small envelope. I know life can be tough, he said, his voice warm and inviting like the sun breaking through the clouds. But every little act of kindness can lead to something big. My head spun. Was this a joke? Was I dreaming? Before I could answer, a loud crash shattered the moment. A bus skidded to a halt nearby, and chaos erupted. The world went dark for a second. Sirens blared in the background, people screamed, and I couldn't tell if the shock was from the crash or the man's gaze still locked onto mine. He dropped the envelope, his face paled. Time seemed to freeze as I reached for it, curiosity and fear intertwining in a whirlwind of anxiety. What was inside that envelope? Was it hope? Or would it lead to something worse? My heart raced as I gripped it tightly, the mystery burning in my hands, while the world around us spiraled out of control. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The chaos dissipated like smoke in the wind, but my heart's erratic rhythm remained. All around me, the world righted itself, but I was stuck, suspended in a moment that felt both like a dream and a nightmare. The envelope was flimsy in my grasp, but heavy with promise and uncertainty. I slid my fingers across its surface, feeling the momentous weight of a life I could scarcely comprehend. The man in the suit had been whisked away by the crowd. I could only see him from a distance, his posture stooped and shoulders hunched, as if the weight of the world had just overwhelmed him. All because of an accident that had nothing to do with him, yet somehow felt like it tormented him deeply. I stood frozen, my mind racing through scenarios. With a determined breath, I tore open the envelope. Inside was a small card no bigger than my palm. It bore a handwritten note that read, "Believe in the impossible." My heart thudded. Underneath, a small, embossed logo caught my attention, a swirling image of a phoenix rising. Was this his way of helping me? Or was it simply a kind gesture lost amid the chaos? My body shook with the storm of emotions raging within me, hope battling despair. I wanted to scream, to cry, to laugh all at once. This simple piece of paper felt like a lifeline thrown into turbulent waters, but would it truly save me? As I pocketed the card, Hoping to hold on to a sliver of belief, I looked back to the scene of the accident. The crowd swarmed around, but it was the way they rallied together that sparked a flicker of warmth in my chest. I watched as strangers reached out to comfort those shaken by the chaos. A woman knelt beside a young boy, whose eyes glistened with tears, offering him her handkerchief, exchanging coffee cups with a man who offered her a smile, strangers becoming moments of kindness in the face of tragedy that I swallowed hard, feeling the lump in my throat. Maybe kindness didn't always have to come from a millionaire. In that moment, I realized it was everywhere, waiting to be acknowledged. I, too, had been standing on the fringes, wishing for something more, but not recognizing the small acts of warmth peppered throughout my life. But amidst the burgeoning light, shadows of uncertainty loomed. Just as I turned to walk back, a familiar face caught my eye, a rugged figure leaning against the brick wall, eyes filled with bitterness and a hint of recognition. My heart dropped. It was Caleb, my estranged childhood friend, who had slipped away into the darkness of our old neighborhood, a place I couldn't return to without feeling physically ill. Is that you? He asked, his voice gruff but laced with disbelief. I wanted to slip away, to vanish from his sight as if the ground could swallow me whole. The last time I'd seen him had been years ago, before our lives spiraled down different paths. He had once been a spark of laughter in my bleak existence. But our friendship fractured as the world hardened around us. Yeah, Caleb. I hesitated. I didn't expect to run into you here. Anger flared in his eyes, and for a brief second, I saw the pain I once knew in his heart. You think you're better than this now? Hiding behind a fancy coat? It's just a coat, I replied, my voice steady despite the tremor inside. I was not better than him. I wore my struggles like a badge, even if I felt like an imposter against the backdrop of success that others reveled in. Whatever. You've changed, he scoffed, pushing away from the wall with a sneer. I thought you were special. Guess I was wrong. The hurt laced in his words cut deeper than any bone. I watched him disappear among the crowd, my heart heavy with regret and guilt. He was right. I had tried to escape our past with every ounce of my will, but it was still tethered to me, like a chain I couldn't break. As the emotions welled inside, the sun peeked through the clouds, casting a golden glow onto the brick streets. Maybe this wasn't the end. Though I felt battered by Caleb's words, I also felt something deep stirring within, a determination to mend old wounds, to reconnect with the kindness I had witnessed just moments ago, even if it meant stepping out of my comfort zone. Holding the card tightly in my palm, I gave one last look to the scene of the accident. And just when I thought it couldn't get any worse, I caught sight of a figure emerging from the crowd. It was the man in the tailored suit, but his expression was unlike before. Panic etched across his face as he shouted for help, and my breath steadied. My heart raced once more. What was happening now? In the space of mere moments, hope tangled with new fear. What had I stumbled into? The man in the suit weaved through the throngs of people with desperation in his eyes. He called out for someone, anyone, to help him, as if he were searching for a lifeline in the choppy waters of chaos that had begun to swirl around us once again. My grip tightened around the Phoenix card, its surface soft yet imbued with a warmth that felt oddly grounding amidst the confusion. Something compelled me to follow him, to understand what had triggered his sudden urgency. I felt a gravitational pull, as if our fates were intertwined by that simple encounter at the accident site. I picked my way through the crowd, heart pounding and thoughts racing. What had he seen that I hadn't? As I approached him, I caught snippets of his strained voice. Please, it's urgent. We need to find her. Each word was punctuated by a rising tension, an undercurrent of fear that clawed at my insides. I glanced around, taking in the faces in the crowd. Some were curious, others indifferent, but all seemed to sense the turmoil brewing in the man. Who are you looking for? I managed to ask, breathless from both the chase and the weight of the moment. He turned to me, his beautiful features now marked with shadows of worry, eyes darting around, as if expecting someone to materialize from the ether. My sister, he stammered, his voice cracking. She was supposed to meet me here. Please, have you seen anyone fall? They took her away. I don't know. A dreadful chill crawled up my spine, mingling with the warmth of the card in my pocket. My mind flashed to the chaos I had witnessed moments earlier. Had someone been injured? In the midst of my own turmoil, I had failed to consider that there might be other stories intertwined with mine, lives in danger, hearts aching just as mine was. Point two, didn't see anyone get taken, I said slowly, my voice trembling in sympathy. But I'll help you find her. What's her name? Lily, he said, drawing a deep breath. She's just all I have. The vulnerability in his voice cracked a little part of my heart wide open. The billion-dollar suit he wore, the air of confidence that initially surrounded him, it all crumbled in that moment, revealing a soul tethered desperately to another by threads of love. Yes, I began to scan the crowd with him. Whispers of hope mingled with shadows of fear. With every second that passed, the reality of their relationship flared in my mind. This man was not simply a millionaire. He was a brother, lost in anguish, searching for the one thing that made his life meaningful. The sun shone through the lingering clouds again, illuminating the street and casting a spotlight on the faces around us, a mix of concern and curiosity flickering in their eyes. The woman I had seen comforting the boy earlier approached us, her brows knitted with worry. What happened? She asked, earnestness radiating from her. His sister, she's missing, I exclaimed, joining forces with this stranger who, only moments ago, had been a brief encounter, now a fellow warrior in this unexpected quest. Almost instinctively, we all began to call out Lily's name, a cacophony of voices searching for one lost soul among the throes of chaos. The crowd gradually began to shift, a sense of community igniting in the face of fear. Lily, someone cried out, a ripple of solidarity moving through the air. But when the cries faded, a looming dread settled in. What if we didn't find her? My heart ached not only for the brother, but for the sheer weight of my past once again rearing its ugly head. A thought pierced through my resolve. What if I was unable to help? In my own struggle for hope, I watched people converge, hand in hand, strangers cradle the flame of kindness, a flicker of light that pulled them from the shadows. But my courage felt crushed under the weight of my emotional turmoil. Caleb's voice echoed in my mind, reminding me of the darkness I couldn't escape. The brother's hands balled into fists at his side, and when my eyes met his, a spark ignited between us, a mutual understanding of how fragile our lives had become in the blink of an eye. Just then, a commotion erupted on the opposite side of the street, a cluster of people gathering closer to the curb. He turned to me, his expression a mix of frantic hope and despair. That way. And we raced toward the disturbance, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Every step sent a chorus of wishes up into the air, a plea for the impossible. As we drew nearer, my heart sank. I saw a woman nearing the ground, her forehead bruised and blood trickling down the side. But wait, was that her? Lily? The brother shouted out, voice cracking with urgency that shot straight through me and evoked a rush of tears I was desperate to contain. My own body felt as if it were moving in slow motion, drawn toward her. But just as the crowd began to part, a deafening noise erupted from the other side, shattering glass, followed by the panicked screams of onlookers. I turned in horror just in time to see Caleb standing frozen, phone in one hand, watching, disbelief etched on his features. And then he made eye contact with me, a moment so charged that the air electrified between us. The world seemed to halt, our past colliding abruptly with the present. Suddenly, it was as if all the pieces of our fractured friendship had converged in a singular moment, held tight beneath the weight of tragedy. My heart raced, the truth pounding against my chest like a war drum. In that overwhelming instant, I realized everything, every decision, every shadow I cast, every tear I fought through was leading me to this. It was inescapable, and my grip on the card faltered. Hope began to fade as I realized, once more, how easily it all could slip away. Help her, I urged, tearing my gaze from Caleb to focus back on the brother, urging him forward. But the confusion was palpable as fear strangled our hopeful attempts. Something told me that no matter the outcome, everything was about to change, thrusting us into a storm far greater than the one we were already in. As I stood at the precipice, the clash of life and longing, dread and hope, I was unprepared for the sudden truth that lurked just beyond the fray. The revelation was close, but at what cost? The chaos unfolded like a tempest, each new sound blending into an overwhelming symphony of fear and urgency. Amidst the frantic calls for Lily and the screams that cut through the air, I felt both a part of this world and an outsider, hopelessly tethered to my past, while desperately wanting to be part of whatever future lay ahead. The man beside me, his anguish raw and palpable, charged toward the woman on the ground, desperation fueling his every step. Please, please be her, he whispered more to himself than to us. I could see the fight within Hima's struggle against despair that was all too familiar. I wanted to reach out and comfort him, but I could only watch, my own heart racing with an amalgamation of fear and helplessness. I was about to step forward when something caught my eye, a flicker amidst the chaos. Caleb was still there, barely a few steps away, the tableau of pain he wore mixing with the tension of the moment. His phone slipped from his grasp, clattering to the ground, cracking underfoot, but seemingly forgotten in the whirlwind of emotions swirling around us. The revelation that had begun to crystallize during our eye contact now bore down on me. Was he staying silent because he didn't know how to reach out? Or was he held captive by the very emotions we had spent so long navigating in opposition? Lily, the brother called out again, his voice lifting with a desperate hope that spiraled into the air like a prayer. The woman on the ground stirred slightly, a flicker of life amid the collateral damage of this tragic day. It wasn't her body alone that seemed fragile. It was the idea of the lives intertwined with hers, a tapestry woven from threads of love, loss, and silent longing. There was a crack in the ground beneath my feet, a gaping chasm that threatened to swallow me whole. And yet, all around me, kindness blossomed in unexpected ways. A woman stepped forward, instinctively kneeling beside the fallen woman, applying pressure to the wound on her forehead, and calling for an ambulance with a steady voice that defied the chaos. Suddenly, the brother stumbled, the realization that this woman might not be Lily crashing down on him like a wave of grief. I rushed to support him, wrapping my arm around his shoulders as he sagged against me. Every ounce of strength I had left poured into steadying him. "Well, find her," I murmured, but my words felt like hollow promises against the enormity of our situation. Just give me a moment," he gasped, his breath catching as tears brimmed in his eyes. Those tears held not only fear for his sister, but a reservoir of lost dreams, of futures mislaid for unforeseen tragedies. I could feel the emotional weight pressing upon us both, squeezing tighter as we stood suspended in uncertainty. "Oh, you know where she might be?" I hastily asked, trying to keep his thoughts tethered to the search. "Did you come here directly from home? Was she supposed to meet you somewhere?" My questions poured out, an attempt to stave off the encroaching darkness that loomed, seeking to suffocate all hope. He swiped at his tears, his brow set with determination that wavered like a flickering candle in the wind. "We were supposed to have brunch at that little cafe on 4th. She loves their pastries." The words came tumbling out, echoing with a sense of nostalgia that suddenly felt painfully out of place. A small, soft touch brushed against my arm. It was the woman who had helped the injured boy, her gaze unyielding. "I'll go check there," she offered, glancing between us, before dashing off with a swiftness that sent a ripple of determination through me. In that moment, her kindness ignited a spark deep inside, a reminder that even amid despair, there were light bearers ready to march into the darkness. Caleb remained still, shock etched on his face, but I felt an urge to bridge the chasm that had grown between us too wide to cross. I stood taller and stepped toward him. "We need to help. Please." My plea was simple, raw. The energy that swirled around us was a mix of hope and grief, a communal cry for strength. He finally took a step forward, hesitantly placing his hand on my forearm. "I don't know what to do." His voice trembled, the vulnerability he exuded breaking some of the walls I had built. In that unsettling moment of connection, it became evident that we were both grappling with a sense of purpose beyond our past grievances. "Neither do I admitted, shaky but resolute. "But we can't turn away. We have to try." I then turned back to the brother, meeting his gaze with fierce conviction. "We will find Lily. I promise." Just as we were gathering our collective strength, the atmosphere shifted again, a heaviness settling upon the crowd as a sense of foreboding washed over me. It was palpable, a thread of despair that wrapped around our paired hopes. Then, as though conjured from my worst fears, a distant siren wailed, growing closer, yet not lifting the pall of dread that thickened the air. What if they take her to the hospital? the brother uttered, anguish piercing his voice. What if he stopped abruptly, overwhelmed, arms shaking as if the very sky above was prepared to collapse? Then well, go there, I said firmly, instincts guiding me forward. We will find her. Together. And there, amidst the rising tension of the crowd, we began to move as Oni coalition of uncertainty fueled by love, urgency, and a longing to cling to the goodness that lay in our shared humanity. As we broke into a run, each sprinting heartbeat resonated against the backdrop of uncertainty. But just when I thought we were overcoming the darkness, a crack echoed through the air, a voice barely above a whisper, tethered to a presence I could just barely sense. Help! It lingered, so fragile yet so powerful. My heart raced as I turned sharply, searching for the source, and found myself face to face with the last thing I had expected. My breath caught in my throat as the frightened eyes of a girl, vivid and familiar, met mine within the crowd. Help me, she cried out, vulnerability piercing through the fray, leaving me breathless. Lily, the brother wailed, losing the very fight that had ignited in him moments ago. Our search, our strife, everything hinged on this unexpected moment, thrusting us into a realm where hope and despair clashed in violent dissonance. And just like that, the stakes heightened, propelling us into the very heart of the storm, where our destinies intertwined in ways I had never imagined. The air was charged, electric with the revelation that stood before us, the proverbial eye of the storm. My heart raced not just from the physical strain of running, but from the emotional weight of what it meant to be so close yet so engulfed in chaos. Lily stood there, her familiar features marred by fear, vulnerability etched in every line of her face. The frantic brother lunged forward, but my body felt like it was rooted to the ground, a war raging within me. Lily, he cried, hope and disbelief colliding in his voice. As he broke into a sprint, every measure of my desire to follow him wrestled against the instinct to protect her. The crowd around us surged forward like a tidal wave, driven by curiosity that swiftly melted into concern as they began to register the distress. Stop, I shouted, my voice impervious to the cacophony surrounding us. Make way. To my utter surprise, the thrumming crowd paused, if only for a moment. It was a tiny act of kindness, like a chisel striking through the dense stone of our collective despair. The woman who had rushed off to the cafe returned just in time, her presence a beacon of clarity amid the storm. That I inched closer to Lily, watching her eyes dart around, panic weaving through the softness of her features. You're okay. We're here, I reassured her, though the tremor in my own voice betrayed me. The world felt like a whirlwind, time distorting as her eyes met mine, a silent plea hanging heavy in the air. But just as the connection solidified, a shadow flickered behind her, a dark figure lurking on the periphery. My heart sank. I felt an unsettling pang of danger, an undercurrent that urged me to reassess the gravity of the moment. Who did this? I asked quietly, though I feared the answer could lead to a deeper unraveling of the tenuous threads of connection we held. I could barely process the emotions swirling the incandescent joy that Lily had been found clashing violently with the unease that now coursed through me. I don't know, she choked out, her voice trembling like a feather caught in the wind. I need to get away. Someone's following me. The words crashed over me, a tidal wave pulling me into a darker groove of fear. Who, Lily? I pressed, locking eyes with her, initiating a silent exchange of truths that felt like a lifeline. But before she could answer, the figure reemerged, a man with cold eyes and a tight-lipped expression that shifted under the weight of suspicion. He hovered just outside the swirl of chaos, watching us with an intensity that felt predatory. Get away from her, the brother roared, positioning himself protectively in front of Lily. But instead of retreating, the man stepped forward, his demeanor suggesting that he was governed by an urgency only he understood. Lily, come with me, he urged, a dogged determination underscoring his tone. It's not safe here. Who are you? I demanded, instinctively moving to shield her further. The crowd was beginning to stir again. The tension thickened palpably, tension that could snap at any moment. Someone who can help, he stated simply, though the words dripped with an unsettling ambiguity. Can he trust you? Caleb stepped up beside me, his voice quaking as concern etched itself across his features. Trust? The man scoffed, his eyes narrowing. In times like this, trust is a luxury. Get away from her. The brother yelled again, his voice rising. I could see fear flash across Lily's face, and for an instant, I felt frozen in time. Every text message unspoken, every look shared, every doubt we had clung to burst for the chaotic reel of our past. But amidst the confusion, hope flickered from Caleb, a glimmer of support in the engulfing darkness. Suddenly, I felt the strength building in me, a resolve that swayed unyielding against the uncertainty about the man before us. You don't have to go with him, Lily, I assured her firmly. We will protect you. Tears spilled from her eyes, tracing trails of anguish and confusion. But as she looked between us, the weight of decision hung over her like a thick fog, layer upon layer of consequence laced through every inch. Just then, amidst the rising tension, I noticed something on the pavement, a thin chain glinting under the flickering light, hooked to a locket that dangled somberly, an unassuming artifact with the power to unravel secrets. My hands trembled as I stepped toward it, its presence strangely magnetic, demanding attention. As I picked it up, the world around us narrowed, the cacophony distorting like the colors of a setting sun. I could feel the breath of the brother beside me hitch in his throat, and Lily's gaze consumed by the locket of force that seemed to tether memories locked in place, gnarled and changed by the ravages of time. Lily, is this yours? I ventured softly, opening it carefully to reveal a small, faded photograph, a boy with an incandescent smile beside a girl who looked strikingly similar to her. She gasped, stepping closer as her fingers trembled to reach for it. The room felt charged, the fragmented connections that bound our lives now drawing together like invisible threads. And it was then that a new reality unfurled. A truth buried in the past, twisted yet radiant, poised to unveil a new layer of complexity to the very fabric we thought we understood. I stood frozen, my heart drumming as I realized that the path ahead had abruptly darkened, and as the weight of poor choices pressed heavily upon us, we found ourselves standing not just on the precipice of danger, but on the brink of revelations that would change everything. Then Lily whispered, I never should have come back. A single tear slipped down her cheek, and those words sealed our fates tighter than any pledge could. The locket slipped from my fingers and landed with a soft thud on the pavement, its weight palpable between us. Eyes remained glued to Lily, her expression a storm of emotions that threatened to capsize her composure. I could see her trembling, a fragile creature caught in an unending spiral of fear and regret. There was something about that locket, a piece of machinery that had churned long before we arrived, and I realized at that moment that this was far more than a trinket. It was a key to understanding a part of Lily's life kept under wraps by threads of silence. Lily, I began again, softer this time, pulling her attention back to my gaze. What's going on? You can't leave me in the dark. Not now. The darkness in her eyes danced with uncertainty, as if my question had dug a little too deeply, forcing a crack in her fortifications. In the midst of chaos surrounding us, there was a rawness I had never witnessed before. The crowd was still churning, nerves fraying tautly, uncertainty radiating as the figure loomed closer, a predator masquerading as a savior. I thought I could handle it, she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. But I should have stayed away. I didn't know they'd find me here. Who would find you? Caleb uttered with impatience, his protective stance unwavering. Lily's eyes flitted towards the man, fear pooling within them, and then back at us, desperately searching for an anchor in this tempest. My father, he's not the man you think he is. He's dangerous. The words crashed over me like icy water, numbing everything I thought I understood. What do you mean? Lily, your father is a millionaire involved in things you wouldn't comprehend, she interjected, her voice laced with urgency. He made enemies, and when I came back, I thought I could protect you both by staying hidden. And you think leaving will protect us? I shot back, frustration mingling with concern. The figure, still standing at the edge of our fragile bubble, seized the moment, a taunting smile curling on his lips. You're all in over your heads, but she can't run away from her past. It's exactly why I'm here. Stay away from her. Caleb spoke again, the growl evident in his voice. You don't belong here. Maybe not, the man shrugged, but I know what will happen if she stays, and so does he. His deep eyes cut through the moment, locking onto Lily's trembling form. They're coming, Lily. You can't ignore that. A cry rose within me, a cocktail of desperation and an unfamiliar sense of dread. Who's coming, Lily? But before she could respond, I caught a glimpse of something swirling in the crowd, a movement I couldn't quite place. Shadows moved rapidly, swiftly weaving through the throng of witnesses, and my pulse quickened, my instincts shouting that we were out of time. Run. The man barked suddenly, causing an immediate fracture among us all. Pushing through the conflicting emotions that held me, I grabbed Lily's wrist, pulling her closer. We need to get out of here. In that split second, a slice of clarity befell me. His was more than a chaotic reunion. It was a crucible of choices, and every choice led us to another brink. Just as we took our first steps away from the danger, I felt the tendrils of the crowd tighten around us, the shapes within slowly morphing into figures more sinister than mere curious onlookers. Let go of her. Through the swirling mass, a voice rose, heavy and authoritative. A man in a black suit emerged, flanked by two more sharply dressed figures, asserting their presence like wolves encroaching upon their prey. The world felt unreal at that moment. Panic surged, and the air felt dense with consequence. You, one of them called out, pointing a manicured finger toward us. You need to come with us. Now. No. I flared instinctively, drawing Lily even closer, my thoughts racing faster than my heart could react. This wasn't just chaos, it was an unfolding nightmare. But as I pulled her closer, squeezing her hand tight, as if holding onto her would shield her from the dark wave crashing toward us, Lily's resolve seemed to fracture. I can't keep running. I can't hide anymore. A knot tightened in my stomach, dread coiling in layers around the glimmer of hope I still clung to. Lily, please, then. In that moment that seemed to stretch for an eternity, her gaze met mine with a profound recognition, a kaleidoscope of shared memories swirling within the pale blue of her irises. Her nod was almost imperceptible, but it struck like lightning through the air thick with uncertainty. But just as I opened my mouth to plead once more, a loud commotion erupted, a cry followed by the chaotic sound of something colliding with a hard surface. A figure fell to the pavement just beyond our periphery, creating ripples through the crowd that intensified the frantic atmosphere. Get back. A muted voice shouted, the command swallowed by panic. And just when I thought the tension couldn't reach higher peaks, a blood-curdling scream pierced through the chaos, freezing us to the spot. That scream carried a weight greater than fear. It was a harbinger of a truth unmasked. The connection we had fought so hard to shield ourselves from began to unravel before our eyes. And with it, I realized fear wasn't the only thing that resided within the shadows. As we stood on the cusp of chaos, the spiral of inevitabilities started to tighten around us, each breath heralding an impending disaster that whispered warnings we could barely comprehend. The night grew darker, but something fierce ignited within me, a determination to stand one more time against whatever shapes were lurking within those shadows. Just then, Lily turned and whispered one last thing, her eyes flickering brightly with a resolve I had never seen before. I'm not running anymore. And those words settled over us like a tremor, the beginning of something unfathomable newly etched between us. The weight of Lily's words hung in the air, pulsating with an energy that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The ground beneath our feet trembled, mirroring the storm brewing in our hearts the moment her resolve crystallized within darkened echoes of uncertainty, creating a fragile yet fierce tether between us. Lily, I murmured, my voice barely a whisper, cracked and raw. What are you saying? This isn't just about you anymore. Don't you see? I can't let fear dictate my life anymore, yours either, she insisted, her grip on my hand weakening as she steadied herself. We can't keep running forever. The shadows shifted ominously as the suited men approached, each step they took intensifying the suffocating air around us. My heart raced, a fierce drum echoing in my ears, as I prepared for the worst. Yet, nestled within that turmoil, was a flicker of her determination and ember fighting against the shadow. They drew closer, an impenetrable wall of authority, but it was the man in front who spoke again, his words laced with a steely calm that sent shivers racing along my spine. Lily, it's time to come with us. You know you can't avoid your father's reach. Let us help you. Help, she spat, the bitterness in her voice igniting a fire that contrasted sharply with her previously trembling demeanor. "You think you'll trust him, the man who tore my life apart? You think he'll trust you?" A shift in the crowd drew my attention as I felt Lily's resolve flicker, her earlier determination waning under the weight of potential threats. A deep concern for her safety battled against the urge to reassure her that not all connections were born from shadows. With a surge of energy, I thought back to the past weeks of our tangled relationship, the late-night conversations, laughter shared over simple meals, and the moments of silence where we cherished something greater than words. A silent dawn, golden and promising. "You're stronger than this, Lily. You've always been enough." The man's voice cut through my plea, his expression twisting into annoyance. "This isn't the romantic fairy tale you think it is. It's life or death." A flicker of doubt passed through me. Perhaps I didn't know the full story, couldn't fully grasp the depth of the darkness encroaching upon us. Was I asking her to stay for love, or was it more selfish than that? The swirling emotions in her eyes reflected a complexity I couldn't fathom but could only feel, and it set my world on edge. "Where is your father?" The question drifted from my lips, instinctively. "Does he truly want you back?" "Yes," she replied, despair flitting across her features. "But there's so much you don't understand. And it's not just my past he'll drag into this. It's yours too. He will find a way to ruin everything." A growing anxiety began to knot in my stomach as I sensed the truth within her words, a darkness I'd unwittingly brushed against. This wasn't merely about her father or the lurking danger he represented. This was about an uncontrollable force threatening everything we had dared to build, a life forged between fleeting moments and the weight of unsaid promises. Before I could respond, a surge of movement erupted from the back of the crowd, a flash of unexpected kindness surfacing amidst turmoil. A woman, seemingly familiar with Lily, fought through the sea of people and reached us, panicked yet resolute. She grasped Lily's arm, her eyes wide and pleading. "Lily, you can't trust them. He doesn't care about you." "Who are you?" I asked, puzzled by her urgency. Recognition flickered across Lily's face as she whispered the woman's name, Emma. "Lily, listen to me. I've seen what he does to people like us. He uses them and discards them. You've got to break free." Emma's voice pierced through the chaos, carrying with it a warmth that enveloped us in fierce loyalty. Lily's gaze flicked between Emma and me, caught in a web of conflicting emotions. "But if I don't go with them, if you don't, you'll never be free. Fight," Emma insisted, her grip tightening, mirroring the rise of courage within our small circle. "You're not alone. You'll never be alone. This is your chance to reclaim your life." Hope began to flicker anew, blooming against the darkness that threatened to snuff it out. But before I could respond, a loud crash echoed against concrete as another figure stumbled into view, bloodied and wild-eyed. Someone fighting through the chaos with desperation. Recognition struck hard and fast like a thunderclap. It was Lily's brother, Jason, barreling toward us with a frantic energy that bordered on madness. "Lily, get out of here. They're coming." The people Dad sent higher, not far behind. The scene around us morphed into chaos, voices raised in confusion, bodies colliding, desperate to escape the tightening grip of fear. The figure, the man who demanded Lily's compliance, stepped forward again, the mask of authority once more cracking. "You're making a mistake, Lily. You don't know what will happen if you keep resisting." But with Jason's presence, the tide began to shift, unearthing a buried truth within Lily, a realization that she wasn't merely choosing herself. She was freeing us all from the chains of her father's legacy. As the figures loomed closer, their silhouettes sharp in the darkness, I stepped forward, instinctively laying a protective arm around Lily and her brother. "Whatever happens, we're in this together." There's strength in numbers. The flicker of hope ignited into a fierce flame through Lily's eyes as she stood taller, arms wrapping around both of us. Together, she echoed, and suddenly the sound unfolded like wings taking flight. And then, just as I felt a tenuous sense of security settle within us, the world tilted once more. Footsteps echoed, rage reverberating in the air, and with a finality that shocked the crowd into silence, a voice cried out that sent dread cascading through the thrumming air. "Lily, you're coming with me." Her name rang out as if spelled with a death sentence, the unmistakable figure of her father materializing through the shadows. an ancient venom in his eyes sparking chaos within the stillness. In that moment, every ounce of hope threatened to crumble, the world dimming before our eyes as we braced ourselves for impact, a storm of emotions swirling in a maelstrom that threatened to consume us whole. The air grew heavier, laden with urgency and dread, as Lily froze, caught between the familial bonds that sought to imprison her and the freedom that we had only just begun to grasp. Her father's appearance was like a thunderstorm on the horizon, dark and looming, and the crowd seemed to oscillate between a collective breath-holding and the instinctive urge to flee. "Lily," he said, his voice a smooth, chilling cadence, cutting through the apprehensive silence like a knife. "You don't have to do this. Come with me, and I can put everything back in place. They'll fix the mistakes." Eyes glinting with a mixture of desperation and fury, he extended a hand towards her, a marionette string tugging at the remnants of her loyalty. "No," she shouted, her voice trembling yet resolute. "You don't understand what you've done. You've taken everything from me." The confrontation had drawn the attention of onlookers, some stepping cautiously back as if they could sense the violent storm brewing. I felt Lily's grip tighten around my arm, her nails digging in as though trying to ground herself in the moment. I understood her fear. I shared it. But deep within me, a spark ignited. "You can do this, Lily," I whispered fiercely, hoping to remind her of the strength bubbling just below the surface. "You're not alone." Yet, at that very moment, horror and disbelief shimmered through the crowd. The suited men began to encircle us, forcing me to instinctively pull Lily closer, aligning us against the incoming tempest. This wasn't just about choice or defiance anymore. It was about survival. Each movement we made echoed our urgency as Lily's brother stood beside us, his eyes darting to the looming presence of their father, whose rage enveloped the air. "Your mother is waiting for you," he shouted, a cruel smile flickering at the corners of his mouth as if to offset his looming threats. "She's asked for you, for the family. Building your life with these people will only ruin you more." "Lily, stop," Emma intervened, stepping forward with an unexpected burst of courage. "You've already ruined this family, and you don't get to play the martyr now." Her words hung in the air like a thunderclap, charging the atmosphere with defiance. I could see the dawning recognition in the eyes of those around us. Woe was here to say enough. Lily's gaze locked onto her father, battling the memories that racked her. The soft whispers of love twisted into weapons, the warm family dinners now just silhouettes of regret. I knew she yearned for solace in a world that had been torn apart. "You were never there for me, Dad. I won't give you that power again," she said, her voice gaining strength, echoing on the winds between us. Yet while the resolve in her voice strengthened, so too did the darkness clouding our periphery. Another figure emerged, a new presence shadow-colored by the backdrop of tension. He wove through the throng, moving swiftly toward us, an undercurrent of purpose in his stride. It was a man I recognized from my days at the library, a local millionaire known for his philanthropy and elusive nature. "Lily," he called out, his voice slicing through the tension like a beams of light carving darkness away. "Come with me, trust me." The invitation sparked a flicker of interest in Lily's eyes, a glimmer of hope radiating from an unexpected corner. "Why should I?" she shouted back, the fight still alive in her. "What do you know? More than you think," the man replied calmly, each word deliberate and wrapped in certainty. "You don't know the extent of your father's reach, and you won't be safe here. Let me help you." "Help us how?" Jason countered, skepticism mingling in the air. "What's your game?" The millionaire paused, then stepped closer, eyes narrowing as the encroaching threat advanced, out of the shadows. "I've seen the wreckage he causes. It's time you break free." Another blow landed in the midst of our heart-thudding chaos, enticing but dangerous. This man's offer felt almost too good to be true, yet the desperation echoed within us, uniting us under a common banner of defiance. Suddenly, the tableau shifted, the world pulling taut as one of the suits began taking advance, a dark smirk bruising his features. "Lily, no matter who you think you can run to, you can't escape the life you were born into. Disobedience will only bring you pain." In that moment, uncertainty nibbled at the edges of Lily's resolve. I understood the weight of her choices pressing down like the encroaching tide, each option threatening to unravel the only safety we had. Her father was her anchor, even as he threatened her freedom. She might just choose to leap into the abyss or claw her way back to the unforgiving shores of whatever twisted loyalty still bound her. But then a lightness brushed across her face, the rightness of new possibilities emerging from beneath depths of doubt. I don't have to stay trapped in your web of lies. I can choose differently. The tides surged around us, and I could feel the energy of our gathered circle pulsate through the air like the steady heartbeat of a drum. We were standing together against the weight of her father's legacy, the million-dollar figure fighting for her freedom and all those who loved her. Yet, just as a breath of hope threatened to unfold, the world shifted again. A piercing scream fractured the momentous silence. Break point ricocheted around the empty spaces between us, echoing off the walls of our growing determination. "Don't be reckless, Lily," her father bellowed, his voice twisted with fury. "You will regret this." And there it was, the delicate balance of hope and despair teetering on the cusp of shattering. As I held onto her tightly, a chilling realization hit me harder than any blow. These weren't just words, they were the binding spells of a past we were all trying to escape. With every heartbeat, the frenzy of chaos nudged nearer, casting a dark shadow over our refuge. Each fraction of a second became a ticking bomb, a counting bringer of fate that otherwise whispered only deep-rooted fear. Then, in the gust of desperation, I noticed something small, yet telling, a flash of recognition in the eyes of the suit closing in on us, as if he knew more than he dared let on about Lily's past and the ties that still bound her. "Everything you've held dear will disappear if you walk away," he hissed, and in those words, the weight of our choices coiled tighter. Panic clawed at my throat. The realization that our choice would lead to unforeseen consequences cast long shadows upon the evolving storm. "Lily, we have to go," I urged, feeling the choke of time slipping through our fingers. But as I turned to usher her away, her eyes met mine, fraying and fierce with a reckless hope that dared to step beyond the periphery of what had always been laid before us. "Together," she affirmed, yet uncertainty flickered in her gaze. "But what if?" And with that thought lingering unspoken, the world fractured a single, haunting note echoing as the crowd swelled around us, each heartbeat locked in a moment that felt suspended between darkness and light, choice and consequence, hope and despair. The crowd shifted as confusion danced in the air, breaths drawn tight in anticipation, while the cacophony of emotions simmered just beneath the surface, fragile tension palpable enough to strangle reason. I felt the rush of time folding, curling in on itself like a withering flower desperate for the sun it could barely reach. Lily's expression was a kaleidoscope of fervor and uncertainty, her heart a battlefield where loyalty to a father collided with a burgeoning desire for self-identity. I could feel it too, the gnawing ache of unknowing, intermingled with the ferocity of her spirit. It tugged at the edges of my heart like a tender current, urging me to bridge the gap between certainty and despair. Suddenly, the millionaire stepped closer, his stature radiating promise, as if the very air shifted around him to support his words. "You think that leaving means losing everything," he said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. "But sometimes, it's only by letting go that you can truly find what you were meant to have." And in that profound moment, as he spoke, I realized that all of us stood at the threshold of a new understanding, not just for Lily, but for all of us tangled in this complicated web. Each of us held our own histories and fears, the weight of expectations screaming for acknowledgement. "Oh, you remember the story about the lion in the cage?" The millionaire continued, his eyes sweeping the anxious faces around him. "The moment you unlock the door, it isn't just about freedom, it's about what you choose to embrace in that space beyond." Lily's breath hitched as his words broke the surface tension, holding her captive. A spark ignited in her hazel eyes, and I caught a glimpse of the freedom she'd always longed for. "What if I don't know how to stay free?" she whispered, vulnerability naked against the world's prying eyes. "Then let me guide you," he replied softly. "You will not walk this path alone." My heart raced at his proposition, and yet uncertainty lingered, gnawing at the edges of my resolve. "And what do you gain from this?" I demanded, my voice edged with disbelief. "Hope doesn't come for free." The millionaire met my gaze, unwavering. "It's not about payment. It's about potential. Yours, and those like you." With these words, he beckoned an unseen alliance in the shadows, a promise hovering like distant stars breaking through the dark. But temptation wove a web around us, thickening the air with the aroma of what could be while reminding us of what was. As I scanned the faces surrounding Lily, the fear flickered, a bond invested in one soul that danced on the brink of absolute chaos. Suddenly, the suited men moved once again, propelled by a silver grasp of authority, pressing in with overwhelming intimidation. "Lily, your life is right here," one of them snarled, his voice a venomous whisper that sent a chill crawling down my spine. "You can't trust a man with empty promises. Those promises could lead to your salvation." The millionaire shot back, a breathtaking fire in his voice. "Do you truly want to chain yourself to the illusion of protection?" Lily swayed between them, caught like a leaf in a storm. "I don't want to live in fear anymore," she breathed, her resolution trembling like a single candle flickering against the shadowed depths. Just then, I felt the pressure of time escalating, each moment an avalanche teetering on the edge of imminent collapse. "They'll follow you, Lily," I said firmly, wrapping my fingers around hers. "No matter where that leads." But the world shifted, in a breaking, crackling sound like a whip slicing through the canopy of hopeful tension. "We're not letting her go," another suit growled, his hands balled into shadowed fists. "Do you think you can just walk away from this life?" The figure before us, who had loomed as an immovable mountain, pushed through the tide of uncertainty, growing more menacing by the moment. "Defiance leads only to ruin, girl. Don't forget that. Lily's voice rose, unwavering as she took a small step forward, our hands still intertwined. The trembling in her voice steadied with conviction. "What is ruin without the chance to live?" I refused to be shackled by fear anymore. But her father's dark laugh skittered across the tension like ice cracking beneath a rising sun, menacing, yet empty. "Do you truly believe you can walk away from this? I will make you regret it." And there lay the truth, the jagged edge of reality threatening to cleave us apart. The glimmer of hope began to tarnish, flickering under the pressure of despair as the realization drowned us. Our choice might lead to unforeseen consequences, our trenching losses, or a thread of whimsy grasping after hope. Suddenly, amidst the clashing emotions, Lily yelled out, "Tell me the truth, Dad. Just once." It was a desperate plea, cutting through the chaos, revealing the core of our struggle, the desire for understanding amidst the storm. His reply was a sneer, a dagger cloaked in sarcasm. "Truth? The truth hurts, Lily. And pain is what you're destined to endure if you choose the wrong path." With those chilling words lingering in the air, the crowd grew restless again, an anxious wave rolling ever closer. I could see doubt creeping back into Lily's eyes, an uncertainty that clawed at the edges of her resolve. But another voice, softer yet steadfast, rang out from the periphery, a gentle woman with kind, wise eyes, who had remained silent until now. "You have the power to define your truth, sweetheart," she said, her tenderness breaking through hardened fears. "It's not your mistakes that bind you. It's the choice to learn from them that sets you free." Lily searched the newcomer's face, her confusion morphing into enchantment, and for a fleeting heartbeat, the world stilled. But just as the possibility began unfurling, a sudden thud, sharp and alarming, echoed, as one of the suited men fell to the ground, clutching at his chest. Gasps erupted around us, uncertainty unraveling into panic as I felt time disintegrate, each heart racing toward the unforeseen. The millionaire stepped forward, eyes sharp and laser-focused. "Lily, now? Trust me," he urged, urgency demanding an unspoken answer. Yet as I tugged at her hand, yearning to flee while the opening still widened, she hesitated, caught in the crucible of destiny, balancing on the precipice of her past. What had just shattered the veil of chaos? In that fleeting heartbeat, another truth clamored for attention behind her hesitant gaze, something even darker lurking just out of sight, its monstrous shadow crawling toward us. And with that, reality split. Choices crackled like a lightning storm poised to strike, and I wondered if we would lose everything before finally discovering the meaning of what it meant to be free. I stood on the precipice of uncertainty, the clash of past and present reverberating in my soul, each heartbeat echoing the question that gripped us all. What would it take to finally break free? The chaos swirled around us, Lily frozen in a moment of indecision, Caleb at my side, and the growing menacing presence of her father looming like a storm cloud. I fought to keep hope alive in the face of despair. Lily, you don't need to do this, I urged, my voice steady yet trembling with urgency. I could see her father's shadow inching closer, a predator feasting on her hesitation. You have a choice. With every word you speak, you can redefine your future. Her eyes flickered between me, Caleb, and the man who had offered her safety. I could practically see the war raging within her as she wrestled with the remnants of loyalty to a man who had only brought her pain. Suddenly, amid the tumult, I realized that it wasn't just her past weighing her down. It was the fear of losing the person she could become. You are strong, Lily. You're not defined by him. You can reclaim yourself, I pressed, stepping closer, willing her to see the path before her. In that moment, something shifted in her posture. I watched as she squared her shoulders, a flicker of determination illuminating her face. I don't want to be shackled by fear anymore, she declared, her voice rising above the clamor. I choose my own way. The world seemed to pause for just a heartbeat as her father's expression darkened, fury spitting venom from his lips. You foolish girl. You have no idea what you're inviting. But as he moved to close the distance, a wave of unexpected allies surged forward, encircling Lily and us in a protective barrier made of humanity's rawest instincts. Lily's brother Jason stepped in front of her, fists balled and eyes blazing. This ends now. You don't own her. Not anymore. The crowd, those once passive observers, transformed into something greater, voices rising in a chorus of defiance. A testament to the power of community flared brightly, illuminating the shadows that had long contained them. It was the awakening of something profound, the merging of souls yearning for liberation. But just as hope twinkled on the horizon, it turned to ice as one of her father's men surged forward, aiming at Lily. In that split second, instinct kicked in. I leaped forward, shoving her out of the way, feeling the brute force connect against my side. Pain erupted as I hit the ground, but in the blur of chaos, I also felt the rush of warmth surrounding my life pulsating through every body gathered, every heart thumping in synchronized rhythm against fear. I heard Caleb shout my name, panic flooding his voice, but all I could focus on was Lily's eyes, wide with shock, fear, and growing strength. Stay back, she shouted, her voice unwavering, rising above the din. I'm not afraid anymore. It was a transformative moment. The scales tipped as she reclaimed her power, standing tall against the demons of her past. Lily's father hesitated, caught off guard as her brother and a wave of supporters flanked her side. I struggled to rise, grit my teeth against the pain, and joined her. But more importantly, she held firm, the spirit of defiance crystallizing in her gaze. Every choice you've made for me has only stifled who I am, she challenged, channeling the culmination of years of pain, resilience forged in fire. You can no longer dictate my life. Her words soared through the air like arrows, piercing through the darkness and striking the heart of her father, who faltered, his authority slipping. You think you're safe, girl? He growled, but his conviction wavered. The crowd pressed forward, drawn in by her vulnerability and strength alike. In that charged moment, I glanced around and caught sight of the woman who had urged Lily to confront her legacy, the million-dollar man who promised a brighter path, and the faces of strangers turned allies, all standing united against a common adversity. Suddenly, the clash of hope ignited, igniting flames of courage in those we had gathered. It became clear that every moment we fought together, we strengthened not just ourselves but all the connections entwined within our hearts. Together, I managed to croak out, voice raw but hopeful, reaching for Lily's hand, feeling her warmth seep into me like life itself. Together, she echoed, and it rang through the crowd, reverberating with conviction. We will no longer be prisoners of our fears. And then, something incredible happened. With another rallying cry, the crowd, composed of familiar faces, colleagues, and strangers, surged forward, becoming a legion of kindness and compassion ready to reject the darkness that had threatened to overtake us all. They closed ranks around us, shielding Lily from the grasp of her father's manipulation. Leave her alone, someone shouted, and like a wave, more voices joined in, restoring the space that had been silence. It became a tidal wave rolling forward, pushing against those who sought to pull her back into the shadows. Then, as if embers ignited by a sudden blaze, the shifting energy transformed our fears into a flame of solidarity, granting us the power to break through. I felt Lily squeeze my hand tightly, and together, we pushed against the storm. Enough, her father bellowed, but even his voice faltered under the sheer power of our unified strength. When I looked into Lily's eyes, I saw a profound understanding dawning. They were no longer fearful. They were ablaze with purpose. "This ends with us," she said softly, her voice blooming from uncertainty into absolute conviction. "You will not control me anymore. We choose our own destinies." And at that moment, as her father fortified against the tide, I felt the world shift within me, and acceptance blooming deep in my heart. Each bonded connection mattered, and while our paths were cloaked in uncertainty, we had the ability to face the shadows together. In that surging sea of faces, I felt solidarity radiate and weave a beautiful tapestry of compassion. When I turned to Lily, she was standing taller than ever, newly unchained from the confines of her past. "Let's go," she said at last, her voice resolute, and without hesitation, we turned toward the light beyond the darkness, the horizon swelling with blossoming possibilities. The crowd pushed back against any who dared obstruct our path. I held tightly onto her hand, while Caleb made his way to my side to safeguard her weaknesses as she had for us all. We were more than allies. We were a family forged in fire, reshaping our fates against the unrelenting storm. With each step we took together toward the unknown, I realized that I was no longer standing at the edge. I was leaping forward into the depths of a future unwritten, a life seated in kindness and authenticity. "Together," Lily said again, this time breathing life into the words. And as we walked into the light, I understood the true measure of strength wasn't in the absence of fear, but in the courage to break free from the darkness, to rise in defiance, and to embrace the beauty of the lives we would create anew, together. No longer shackled by the past, and ready to embrace the dawn of a new beginning, I felt my heart swell with a warmth I thought I had lost forever. And this time, I believed in the impossible.